Hey skiers, I'm Jeff from Skiessentials.com.
And I'm Bob. How's it going?
Bob and I are here to do a 2025 touring ski comparison. This is one that we've gotten a lot of requests for, and I'm excited to have this conversation. It's certainly not the first touring comparison that we've ever done, but it might have the most skis.
Yeah, we got 24 up here today.
24?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of skis.
Could have gotten a few extra widths, but really nothing other than these brands.
Yeah, this is a good representation of what we have in the building for touring skis. Obviously, there are other touring skis outside of this, but yeah, this is what you can expect from us, at least. And we're going to go in kind of a simple format of lightest to heaviest. There's some like variety in there. There's a little bit of gray area here and there as we have different lengths, so the weights aren't perfect in comparison to each other, but I think it's a perfectly good way to organize them. And I would say that this might look and feel a little different than other 2025 ski comparisons or other ski comparisons that we've done. I generally feel like with touring skis, the conversation can move a little faster. It's kind of hard for me to describe why I feel that way, but I suppose it comes down to just how they're used. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've always felt like people want the answer that they want to hear. Like,
Sure.
Will that atomic 102 be as stable as something? And it's like, well, no, because it's really light.
Yeah.
You know, it's not going to be as stable as something on the heavier side of the wall. And like, I think people just like, they want to hear the answer that they want to hear, and it's not as simple as that, unfortunately.
Sure. No, that makes sense. I also feel like there's a lot of similarities on this wall.
Yeah.
You know, and then like when we're talking about like, say, mid-80 all-mountain skis, like the variances in like just torsional stiffness, like you feel so much on firm snow, and obviously you're going to feel a lot from these skis, but I would say generally in a touring situation, like the style of the activity doesn't lend itself to as many differences.
Yeah, and touring also means different things to different skiers.
Right.
Whereas like on-piste groomers
is like more of an objective
is
thing.
very it's more universal. Yeah.
Yeah.
So where we are here in Vermont, we basically have like resort touring, skinning up and down the resort.
Yeah.
Or finding some backcountry zone, whether it's Nebraska, Sterling, Worcester, you know, something like that.
And like, I mean, even just here, like skinning up and down Nosedive in the morning, which is a groomed resort trail, is very different than going backcountry touring in Nebraska Valley.
Yeah.
And like the skis, you know, it's an interesting conversation. The other thing I'll say that like I'm disappointed by, but inevitably it's going to happen somewhere, is you'll see less skiing footage from these skis.
Yeah.
For a few different reasons. Not that we don't spend time on them, but like filming touring is not very exciting.
No, climbing does not film well.
Yeah, and that's a good segue too, because we don't really talk about like uphill performance that much either, and that's something that we've talked about in these touring comparisons before. Is generally the lighter ones are going to go uphill better. And you don't really need to get into it too much beyond that.
Right.
I will point out like when some shapes are going to be better uphill than others, but it's not a wild difference.
Right.
Just like when you've got a ski with a ton of rocker, they can wander a little bit, but that's snow condition dependent. You know, if you're touring up through a couple feet of snow, you're not wandering.
Right.
You're staying right in your track, and then it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
A little bit of like purchase, but anyways, you got anything else to say, Bob?
I don't think so. Yeah, there's some new stuff here that we haven't covered before. So there's less hybrid style skis now than before.
Yeah.
We'll see a few that borrow the DPS, the Dynastar, each have kind of an Alpine counterpart, but it seems like touring skis are moving in a more independent direction.
I think so too. I mean, it's like it's just sort of been a natural progression. Like touring became very popular hybrid skis and bindings became very popular. And then, as is true with anything, like, people buy them and ski them and start realizing limitations of, like, oh, sure, my Enforcer 104 Unlimited with my shift on it doesn't feel as good as my Enforcer 104 non-unlimited with a Griffin on it.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of interesting. You want to get started?
Sure.
So first ski up here, I'm gonna get us started with this Blizzard 0G LT80. I think a very interesting one to start with. Obviously, it's the lightest ski up here because it's the furthest that way. And, you know, I would just, like, full disclosure, this is not something that I would really ever choose to ski on, Bob.
Not unless you want to set uphill records up nosedive.
Yeah, I don't really have much of a desire to do that. As a former Nordic ski racer, I've talked about this before too. It's hard for me to get, like, super excited about the in-betweens.
Yeah.
I went up enough hills on classic skis in my early years. But anyways, this is a really cool ski. It's narrow. It's 80 underfoot. We'll look at the shape in just a second, but it's just over 1,000 grams. It's 1,075 grams. It's the True Blend Tour wood core, and then we get carbon drive and carbon reinforcements, and carbon is a theme that will come up a lot. You can kind of, that's a little window into the carbon right there. But kind of one-dimensional, I think it's fair to say. I would say this is best for somebody who's kind of, like, randonnée race curious, like you said, like, you want to see how fast you can go up nosedive, or, you know, maybe your ski touring, the goal of it is much more from a fitness perspective than it is from a ski performance and enjoyment of the downhill perspective. Something like this is fantastic. Yeah.
Or if your idea of downhill performance is different than someone who's looking to carve a turn on.
Yeah, if you want just something super light. Like, something that I think is very interesting, and we'll look at flex patterns throughout this comparison, is the skis that are light and very stiff, and I would say this is one of them. In some situations, I feel like that kind of gives them, like, more limitations. Like, you might think that, like, oh, it's light, but it's stiff, so it's going to be supportive.
Yeah.
Where on a ski like this, it's just so light and so stiff and pretty responsive that it can get kind of that slightly twitchy feel. So it's just something that you have to be aware of. It's not going to feel supple. It's not going to absorb varieties in the terrain in front of you. And then, you know, not surprisingly, being pretty narrow, it's more of a, like, firm snow-focused shape. So there's not much tip rocker up here. There's not a lot of camber height, which is nice, I think, if considering its flex pattern. If there was, it would be a handful. And then there's really not much tail rocker back here at all. One thing that's helping it quite a bit is it's a 22-meter turn radius. And that's going to be another thing that'll be interesting to look at up here. So although it doesn't have, like, long rocker, or it doesn't have the width for soft snow, it does have a long turn radius that'll give it more of a catch-free feel when you're releasing the tail edge than some. But really good going up, not so great coming down, in my opinion.
And we're going to have the opposite conversation on this end.
Yeah, so a good one to start with, just because it's a good one to kind of compare to as we move forward here. And, you know, the next ski that I'm going to talk about is another 0G, and like, it's not drastically different, but I think the effect is, you know, it feels quite different.
You wrote down the prices here, Jeff. I don't want to miss out on it.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Two comparisons in a row.
At least I brought the board.
Yeah, you brought the board this time.
That was $800.
Yeah. This Volkl Rise Beyond 96 is a slight downtick in price, $749.99. So for $50 less, you're really upping the versatility. And when we talk about versatility, I kind of keep the same idea in my mind with touring skis as I do alpine, where, like, 95 is a good place to be.
Yes,
you know,
I agree.
if you're mixing
95, 98.
Yeah, if you're mixing terrain conditions, up and downhill capabilities, I still think that this is a good place to be. And if you're out skinning in Little Cottonwood Canyon, you might find that to be on the narrow side. But if you're not in a super deep area, then I think that this holds true. A little bit heavier here, 1,311 grams. but still quite light. They do use Volkl's light multi-layer wood core here, and we do get carbon in the tips as well. One of the interesting things about this construction is that it's a fully capped ski. There's no sidewall here. One of the things they're able to do is just kind of keep this thing a little bit sharper in its angle, and they're reducing a little bit of weight by angulating, making this more of a trapezoidal shape, just taking the corner off. We saw that with Elan, did that with their skis, and we'll see it with Atomic as well. Just an easy way to shave weight off of the sides of the ski. You know, you could argue that it increases durability. We talk about that with a twin tip that's capped, where it reduces the ability to chip. And I'd say the same philosophy is generally true here as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, a little bit more suppleness in the flex here. That's going to help with deflection like you were talking about with that LT80, where if it's too light, too stiff, too narrow, it's not going to be as rewarding. We start to see a little bit of rocker here as well. Not a ton of splay. You know, when we're looking at splay and rocker and touring skis, generally we're seeing more flat profiles to give you better purchase on the skins. More of a twin tip means more skin is off the snow. So that's kind of a nod to this really, really flat tail. No taper, no rocker really, just a little bit of roundness at the end. And then this ski also benefits from Volkl's 3D turn radius. So some of that technology from the Alpine world filtering into touring, but not as dramatic of a change as we see. So 24, 17, 21. Again, kind of dealing with a 20-ish meter turn radius. We won't see a whole lot of teens other than some outliers here. A lot of the turn shapes in here are 20 and over.
The pink ski in the middle there.
Yeah, certainly a shorter outlier. But yeah, a great middle ground ski, mid-width, mid-shape, lightweight, easy to use with that cap construction. I think that someone who's getting into touring will appreciate this, and then I'm sure you could see a top end being higher as well.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, a lot of friends local to us here in Stowe are Rise Beyond skiers.
Yeah.
A couple ski instructors that I can think of off the top of my head. And next ski, I would say, is fairly similar. This is the Blizzard 0G95. So pretty similar to that LT80 that we started with in its recipe or its construction, but there are some differences. And I would say overall quite similar to that Rise Beyond that we just talked about in performance and application. One thing that I've always found with 0Gs, or 0G95 and 105 in particular, I used to own a 0G95. I don't know where it went.
You're the green one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it wasn't, this is Carbon Drive 3.0 in this ski. The one that I had was the previous generation. It did change a little bit, but overall pretty similar. I was always quite impressed by its stability. And I think that's like kind of its separating factor from Rise Beyond is these 0G skis just are like pretty darn stiff. This one feels more supple than the LT80, a little bit more vibration damping in here. You can like feel it in how it flexes, and it's gonna absorb things in front of you a little bit better. But yeah, you know, I think Rise Beyond is a little softer, a little bit more forgiving. I think this 0G is great for like pretty high level skiers who want a really, really versatile touring ski. You see a ton of them here in Stowe.
Yeah.
And it like, there's no surprise why. They handle firmer conditions really well, but then you can kind of get it into soft snow and have a pretty good time. 1,315 grams there on our scale. And as we kind of go through this progression, we are going to see some shapes kind of getting a little bit more fun as we go, I would say. And, you know, we're starting to see a little bit more tip rocker here, at least compared to that LT80 that we started with. A little higher camber height, and that kind of goes along with that little bit softer flex pattern. You know, it's not going to be quite as pingy, so you can build a little bit more camber into it for some support. And then still not much tail rocker back here, but we're getting more. Yeah. And then it's like a nice amount of kind of pointy taper there, and a 20 4-meter turn radius.
A straight shooter.
It is, yeah, and it's really cool. Like it's, you know, there's a reason why you see longer turn radii on a lot of touring skis, and we've had these discussions. They typically come up in like powder ski comparisons because you can have a flat profile like this or a flatter profile and still make it very maneuverable by giving it a long turn radius.
Right.
So, you know, don't expect to get on a 0G 95 and carve.
Right.
Like, just don't, because it's really not going to work.
It's one of those ones where you put your edges in and you just
fall over.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, sure, you can carve on it. I can always just feel somebody behind the camera ready to type their comment and like, I have a 0G95 and I race giant slalom on it. And I'm like, okay. But yeah, I mean, I've owned it and like, I don't enjoy how it feels in a carving turn. I just love, I have a vivid memory of skinning up. It must have been like right after the mountain closed. I think it was right after the mountain closed, and we got, it was one of those like fluke April powder days that like dropped a foot.
Yeah.
And I went and skinned up and just came down gondolier, and it was so much fun on this ski, just making like extremely rhythmic, like slightly skidded, slarvy turns.
Yeah.
So it's a great ski. You know, it is going to have some limitations in deeper snow, but with that longer turn radius, it can handle it. And then we're back up to a $799.95 price here, just like the ski that we started with.
Yep.
But I think it's a great one. I think there's a reason why Blizzard has made a name for itself in the touring category, and a reason why 0Gs have a strong following both on the ski and the boot side.
Yeah, for sure. Here we got a new one now.
Yeah, I'm like bummed that you get to talk about this one, because this is probably one of my favorites on this wall, except
the other Atomic.
The other Atomic that's a little bit wider.
Yeah. This is new Atomic Backland 102, $749.95, and not like wholesale changes from Backland 100, although it does do some things quite differently.
Yeah, I agree.
It follows a very similar kind of change philosophy from the other new skis, Bent 100, 120, in that they use more wood and less other materials. So we had this conversation with the Bent 100 and Bent Chetler 120. So the 102 does lose carbon. It uses a thinner fiberglass laminate, uses more of the lightweight poplar wood that they use in the core. And then we get their Horizon Tech 3D, which in the touring models is perforated. So it's this insert that goes in, and basically they've poked holes out of it. I certainly look to the Stockli Edge FT for inspiration for a perforated hole poking in the ski for weight savings. I think we've all kind of seen people like drilling holes in certain things to shave weight, whether it's like a bicycle, like what?
Interestingly, my mind goes to water ramp skis.
Okay.
So like to reduce like basically like the impact, like surface tension, you used to take like, you used to just drill like giant chunks out of your ski.
Yeah.
I don't know if kids still do that, but
I'm sure kids do.
It was a thing when I also haven't water ramped that much, but more than most people, and yeah, you see it a lot.
Yeah.
Anyways, carry on.
Okay. So yeah, those are the new things, and there also is more of a beveled edge here.
Yeah.
That is certainly a noticeable change from the 102 versus the older 100, which we really liked. I know that I've always been fond of that ski with the carbon backbone, even just from an Alpine standpoint. And this new 102, it doesn't seem to lose a whole lot of snap and energy. But you know, we'll see how it goes. I think that the addition of wood definitely makes it a little bit quieter, or the increased wood component just does make it a little quieter and a little smoother than the ski with carbon. 1,360-ish grams.
Yeah.
Yeah. So super light, really efficient for climbing. It does follow a similar trajectory to what we've seen in terms of more rocker and splay in the tips. This is a very much Alpine-oriented shovel shape, where we see this in Maverick bent in the Atomic world. Very similar overall. More camber underfoot than we've seen so far, so I think that helps with increasing grip and confidence in more technical areas. Steeper, firmer snow, having that camber underfoot is really helpful because it does give you a little bit more edge grip and a little bit more rebound. And then we're seeing that slight tail rocker here, long and short, and some taper. But again, keeping those tails pretty close together with minimal splay is certainly a nod to the uphill component. 19 meters here in this 179. So one of the turnier skis we've seen so far, and I think that does make it kind of stand out in terms of blending that shape and the profile with an updated build to make it a really solid and confident performer both uphill and down. I think as we kind of move towards the middle here, we're seeing that mix of uphill efficiency and downhill performance blend. You know, I kind of pointed to this at the beginning and said, don't expect stability to it, but this might be a little bit of an exception here.
Well, and like, pun intended, I guess. It's like, it punches above its weight.
Sure.
Like, it's one of those skis that it always has, like Backland 100.
Yeah.
We've had that conversation probably 15 times over the past few years, that like, when you ski it, it doesn't feel like it's 1,300 grams.
Right.
But then when you go uphill, you're like, oh, it's 1,300 grams, sweet.
Yeah.
So, and I think there's a little bit of that in the Zero G95 as well.
Yeah.
They both like, yeah, both kind of, they feel pretty solid considering how light they are.
Yeah, and it certainly just keeps, with all of Atomic's new updates this year, I think that it's nice that Backland follows that trend.
Yeah, and like, you know, as we go heavier, it's going to correspond more or less to going wider as well, which hopefully isn't surprising. But, you know, hands down, the best in soft snow so far of what we've talked about. It's the widest, and then you also get the longest tip rocker. And I actually think it's an interesting comparison to these next two, the Wayback 106 and the Locator 104, because we were kind of talking about this before we started filming, with this one kind of feeling more technical, and like more of like a real backcountry tool.
Yep.
Locator feeling a little bit more like a powder touring ski.
Yep.
Or like East Coast powder touring ski. You know, 112 is down there, which is gonna be a real powder touring ski. This to me feels like it's kind of right in between.
Yeah.
Which I think is great. And again, like I'm quite impressed by Backlands. I got to ski the 109 a lot last year, more than I did the 102, but I have recommended this ski to a ton of people, a ton of friends, and the women's version too, which I think is just the 101.
I think so, yeah.
Anyways, moving on. This is the K2 Wayback 106. This one's kind of cool because this is the first ski that we've talked about that has metal in its construction. It's basically got a single strip of metal. You can kind of see it, actually.
Yeah, it's in there.
It's in there.
Yep.
So it's like a partial I-beam, sort of, if you're familiar with disruption skis and how K2 puts metal into those skis. So it's a Titanal beam. Who says Titanal beam? Rossignol?
Yeah.
It's pretty similar to that.
Narrower
single strip of Titanal down the middle. And then we get carbon stringers as well in these skis. The price ticks up a little bit, so we're up to $849. I don't know if we did Backland, but Backland $749. So this is the most expensive ski that we've looked at so far. It has metal in it, and we've talked about that plenty of times before, that metal can really add some significant cost to a ski. And yeah, I know a lot of people that really love Backlands. My brother is a skier who has, Waybacks. People like Backlands too. My brother has always been a big Wayback skier, and like, you don't know my brother, but he is a pretty perfect example of like the type of skier that I think should be on a Wayback. His version of Alpine ski touring involves like making things kind of as hard as possible. You know, he really is into like finding more like mountaineering zones that also include like a pretty technical descent.
Yeah.
And I think a ski like this is awesome for that. We'll look at it in the shape, why I think that is. Before we do, it's 1,410 grams. And this one does have, I think this is the ski that I was flexing before we started filming, that I was like oohing and ahhing about, because I like the skis up here that can be light while having like more of a round, supple flex pattern. But anyways, shape is kind of where things, to me, get really interesting with this ski. There's a good amount of tip rocker up here, which is nice to have. There's not much early taper. And then in the tail, like, yes, there's tail rocker back here, but it's such low splay. And again, like, kind of no taper that you're getting a really long effective edge. And that's gonna change like the overall characteristics and feel of the ski. And the next one that we look at, the Locator, has more splay back there in the tail and more taper in both the tip and the tail, and just kind of feels more soft snow oriented. And you know, the benefit of a ski like this, 22.3 meter turn radius, so pretty straight. The benefit of a straight cut ski like that with that lack of taper is like edge grip confidence. So if you're descending down like a steep, icy chute, you don't want your edge slipping out. Like, you might not be skiing it like fluidly and dynamically, but you're gonna get to the bottom and be alive. You know, I've been in a handful of situations where I consider it a no-fall zone. And if you're in a situation where you're basically like, you know, you fall, you die, or you fall, you're gonna get pretty hurt, having like the confidence of long effective edge and a ski that you can really trust is really nice. But then the alternative is it does take away some of the playfulness. So that's why I've always thought Waybacks, this 106, since this is the one that we're talking about, are really good for those like true backcountry enthusiasts that are going out there and exploring and probably ending up in a challenging scenario at some point where, you know, skis like Locator, Backland 109, they feel more fun kind of in their purpose.
Yeah.
So this is very technical.
Yeah.
And it's reflected in the price. You know, the most expensive ski that we've looked at so far.
Yeah, and good move to the playful one here. This is a Locator 104 from Armada. This is last year's graphic. We don't have any of the 2025 graphics, but the ski returns unchanged from a construction and shape standpoint. Built with a Caruba wood core, we do get carbon and another metal plate underfoot. A lot of these skis do have binding retention plates underfoot, mostly because those tech bindings are just a different mounting zone. And if you're in a lighter wood like Caruba or Polonia, like most of these skis are, it's not as good of a retention as a poplar or a beech. So that's why a lot of these touring skis have a metal plate or some other type of retention plate. DPS just uses an additional kind of plastic laminate underfoot there. Well, I got my weights wrong here, Jeff. 1,310 grams.
Let me make sure that's accurate.
Let me see this one.
Because when I first put it on there,
1432.
I think the scale's just wandering a little bit. Yeah,
okay.
You were right.
That was all right.
It's just like it wants it to be lighter.
Yeah. And we've talked about this before with Locator, a different shape for a touring ski. So we're definitely looking at more rocker, more taper here in these Locators, and really more of a surfy and playful ski. So more splay, more rocker, still some good camber underfoot, but then we start to see the tail shape start to look a little bit more like what you would see in a modern freeride ski in terms of the tail rocker shape and the taper here. So more drifty, more floaty. The taper and the shovel for sure. You know, much sharper at the very end, and then widest part is brought down. That gives this spoony tip shape just more surface area to float on and just to be more drifty and smeary. So I think Locator takes it so far in terms of that soft snow playfulness, more bouncy, more slashy performance, and I think a little bit longer. I might not be able to read a turn radius on this one. I apologize. Oh, there it is, 22 meters. So again, kind of in that low 20 zone of being able to be thrown sideways with ease, and then with that camber underfoot definitely rebounds you into the next turn. So nice active ski here for being so light. I think that these make a lot of sense for skiers that are looking for a narrower, more floaty ski. So I mean, in the alpine world, I'd say like something like a Salomon QST 98 floats very well for its width. And I would kind of put that same attribute here to the Armada Locator 104.
Yeah, my mind goes to like Volkl Blaze 104 too.
Yeah. Yeah, just the shape and the profile help it out more than the width. So pretty cool ski. You know, one of these ones that, you know, Armada is, whether it's declivity or locator, people still seem to gravitate towards them as a freestyle company.
Yep.
And, you know, I think they do a really good job. Anyone who's been on a declivity or a Reliance will know what I'm talking about, that Armada is not pigeonholed into this twin tip category, although they do those really well too. And I'd say the same thing for the touring skis. It's just not looked at as, oh, I'm shopping for a touring ski, I'm gonna home in on Armada. You know, it just doesn't seem to make that connection with a lot of people. And they do offer something different than most of these other companies do.
And they weren't like met with immediate acceptance and popularity.
Yeah.
I think that is fair to say about Armada Locators, and I think some of that was the price.
Yeah.
Like that ski's $899.95.
This one's less.
Because it's 2024.
It's 2024.
Yeah, but when it was new, it was $899.95.
Yeah.
And I feel like that can be like, I don't know, like a jaw-dropping, kind of like intimidating, what the heck is that price tag? But it's kind of like refreshing to have it up here on a wall with a bunch of skis that are about the same price.
Right.
And when you start looking at it next to like other alternatives, then all of a sudden it doesn't feel like it's really expensive.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd say if you're looking at it through the lens of, I have historically been an Armada skier, you're like, why would I buy a touring ski from Armada for $900? But then like, they ski well, and like they're not, you know, it's not overly priced.
Yeah.
So.
No, and I just think they're cool because they're different than other skis in terms of their shape and their style. Yeah.
This one is too.
Yep.
In my opinion. So this is the Dynastar M-Tour 100. This ski is basically like you take an M Pro 100 and you take the metal out. So it's still that hybrid 2.0 core. So the like joinery techniques, I knew something was happening with that thing. The three different sections of wood in the core and using some joinery techniques, which is pretty cool.
Yep.
And then like I think the inclusion of the PU, the polyurethane material, is really where you get the benefit of this hybrid core. We've talked about it before. It gives the skis a lot of like really good vibration damping. M Pros are going to have better vibration damping because they also have metal in them. But considering what this is, I'd say it's pretty darn good. And then we'll look at the shape in just a second, but it basically shares the same exact shape with the M Pro 100. And if you've watched like the 100 millimeter comparisons for kind of more all mountain focused skis, they definitely opened up the versatility of that ski. And I would say the same is true with this ski. And it might be like the most versatile thing that we've looked at so far. 100 is a very versatile width, and the shape gives you a lot of versatility as well. On our scale, it's coming up at 1,400 grams. The scale likes to wander up and down 20 grams now and then, so it's not like technically heavier than the last one, so forgive us for it not going perfectly sequentially. Like I said, there would be some gray areas. And then flex pattern is nice. Like we were talking about it off camber before. I personally really like these lighter weight skis that can have a little bit more flex, a little bit more suppleness to them, because you know, I as a skier feel like I can then use the ski for more things. I can get it to do more different turn shapes, and I don't feel like I'm fighting it, sort of.
Yeah.
So the shape in this ski I think is great. It is different than a lot of what we see up here. Good amount of tip rocker up here, good kind of smooth early taper, not quite as pointy as we saw in like M-Pro 99 or M-Tour 99.
Right.
A little bit more bulbous here, which is kind of nice, kind of engages into a turn a little bit better. Good amount of camber underfoot, and then more tail rocker than we saw in the previous generation of M-Tours and M-Pro skis. And again, a little bit more like bulbous in the tail here. And the reason I point out those sections is it has a 17-meter turn radius. So it's quite turny.
Yeah, everything's rounder about that ski.
Yeah, it's going to make very round turns, and that's going to either work really well for your skiing style or not work really well for your skiing style. And to me, this is kind of one that, like, could it be used as a hybrid resort/touring ski? I think it could. I don't know that I would want to, but if you didn't have, like, significant demands for firm snow performance, the shape certainly is going to work well inbounds, and that is, I would say, exceptionally true if you don't need that long turn radius for like backcountry applications.
Yeah.
So could be like a really, really good inbounds resort touring ski. Certainly something that you can take into the backcountry as well, but to me it doesn't feel as like backcountry oriented as a K2 Wayback.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
So, yeah, I think it's cool. I think they're really fun to ski too. I think like same is true with the M-Pros. Like they just ticked up the fun factor. The previous skis all felt so serious.
Yeah.
And now they don't feel as serious.
That's what I liked about them.
The seriousness. Yeah. Well, I bet it's like it's fair because think like how many other skis up here are very serious.
Yeah.
A lot.
A lot.
So like you know, I think there's room for a ski that can feel a little bit more fun and playful. Yep. And I think that's at least how I think about the M-Tour 100.
We got a Blizzard 0G 105, and a little bit different from the 95 and your 80 over there.
Surfier.
Yeah, and a little bit different of a construction too. So as opposed to just a Polonia True Blend style wood core, we do get isocore and poplar in here as well. So a little bit denser in the wood, 1,440 grams, let's say. And this also has the Carbon Drive 3.0, so 3 different layers of carbon in this ski.
Can I stop you for a second? I completely forgot to say that this is $699, so it's arguably also one of the best values up here.
Yeah, great point, Jeff.
Carry on.
Worthy of the interruption.
Yeah, okay, thank
you. So yeah, slightly different shape in terms of width as the 95 and build. But overall, very similar character. I think if you're just encountering more fresh snow, a more western ski area, then certainly a 105 might make more sense for you. We tick up the price for sure here, $899.95.
Sounds like a lot until we get to the next ski.
I know, but even $100 over your 95 over there.
Yeah, and $200 more than this.
Yeah,
that's kind of, I was glancing at the 0G price, and that's what prompted me to bring that up, because that's a pretty big difference, $200.
Yeah, I also find it interesting that it's in the ski world, weight does not equate to price. No, you know, there's a lot of differences.
And it's like not black and white.
Yeah,
it's like way nuanced, and like there can be everything.
Right.
There can be a cheap heavy ski, there can be a cheap light ski, there can be an expensive heavy ski and an expensive light ski.
Yeah, and I don't want to blanket bike parts, but it seems like bike stuff is
more linear.
Yeah, more linear.
Correct.
The lighter it is, the more expensive it is.
I agree. It's another weird thing about skis.
Yeah, but yeah, just a slight uptick in rocker from that 95, just a more surfy shape overall.
Yeah.
So again, leads to more of a kind of a distant mountain peak aspect versus the 95, which I would venture a guess is to say it's just more versatile for inbounds touring,
yeah.
or
and take that and reapply it to whatever I think people know what we're saying when we say inbounds.
I hope so. I don't know. I can never tell. And then 23-meter turn radius here. So similar to the 95, real straight ski here, which just really enjoys, combined with the weight. You get like a nice lightweight ski and a longer turn radius, you can just throw them sideways. And if you get a slightly flatter shape overall, you can really take advantage of that long turn shape and just max out on the fun.
Yeah.
But a little bit more supple in the flex too, than the 95 there. So a little bit more of a free ride mentality here.
I agree 100%.
So pretty cool.
Yeah, they feel like more surfy and more maneuverable, and like also a little bit more stout.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've always really enjoyed the 105. I've never really found a reason to own one.
But like you mentioned about the 95, there's a lot of those around here as well.
Yeah. Although I do own a Ripstick Tour 104, which feels weird that I feel a reason to own that and not this.
Yeah. Well, it's more of a twin tip.
Yeah, and like a little turnier.
Yeah.
Where we live, that helps a lot. Next ski up here is the DPS Pagoda Tour. Sorry, I'm blanking. The 105, right?
Yep.
You've got the 100, the pink 100
the pink
in there.
100, yeah.
Yeah, it's like keeps throwing me off when wider skis are lighter than their narrow counterparts. But anyways, I'd say DPS is pretty well known for their accomplishments in the soft snow and touring world, and this is a very good example of that. This ski has a Polonia wood core, and then it's got 2 layers of kind of carbon and flax worked together. So if you're familiar with like Salomon's CFX, it's that, but DPS version, so it's fancier.
Yeah.
Because aerospace grade carbon, and I bet the flax is organically and sustainably sourced.
Yeah, I bet it's real nice flax.
I don't know what good or bad flax looks like. But no, seriously, I mean, this ski it's really good. And it is an incredible, just soft snow, fun touring ski. It can be very technical too. We talked about like relying on a ski in the backcountry. I think this is something that I would feel perfectly comfortable trusting in a challenging scenario. And it's like, it's $1,695.
That's steep.
So it's not cheap.
Yeah.
But like, if you've got a big budget and you want a really like high-end premium product, then there's a reason it exists, and people buy them.
Yep.
And they're quite good. I think like the price is probably best reflected in just its overall snow feel. Like, they feel really good for being, it's 1,420 grams, call it, and they just feel like smooth and like confidence inspiring. It's like kind of interesting because when you take a DPS out of the touring category and compare it to other skis in that collection, it generally leans the opposite, where like it feels more maneuverable and like a little bit twitchy at times. And then when you compare it to a touring wall, this to me feels like the smoothest, or one of the smoothest. So
yeah, I mean, they've always just been a company that has made carbon-based skis.
Exactly, they have a ton of experience.
Yeah, and like even before they made touring skis, we would always make the argument that, just a regular Pagoda 100 would be a great touring ski.
Right.
And now they
just
just
kind of exactly what I mean.
Take it to the next level with a lighter weight wood.
Yep.
And that really nice flax, which it does reduce the ping of the carbon.
100%.
Like, it is very much a damping agent in this ski.
And an effective one.
Yeah.
Like it works really well. One thing that's always important to point out with DPS is turn radius. So that'll come up when we get to the 100 there in comparison. But this one's an 18-meter turn radius. So it's not as like just pure turny as we see a lot of the time from DPS, and we'll see in that 100. So it definitely, that's kind of, that's contributing to why I think it's such a good soft snow ski, is it's long enough in that turn radius that you can release the edge, you can get it to flick out, you can get it to kind of slash if you want to. But then it's still responsive, it still comes across fall line when you need it to, it still has kind of a round, turny format. And they blend all that with pretty significant rocker too. So good amount of tip rocker up here. It's going to keep the ski planing out on top of soft snow really nicely. A lot of camber underfoot. And then the tail has kind of I want to say ideal, but that depends on you as a skier. But it's got a really, really nice blend of rocker and then like long, smooth taper, which is going to do a couple things. It like lets the back of the ski sink a little bit more because there's less surface area behind you, and it's also less catchy. So, you know, big kind of spoony shovel, a lot of rocker up there, and then that kind of pointier tail just is like, it's kind of a dream for a directional powder skier. Like the skis are just going to stay like that, you know, with the tail kind of sinking, and just gives you so much control to just kind of like maneuver and move around, and you know, you can kick it out and slash a turn, but then you can like do subtle kind of carves in soft snow too. So, you know, there's plenty of reasons to point at this ski and say that is way too expensive, and there's plenty of skiers out there that I would, you know, based on your financial situation, I would agree and be like, yes, you probably shouldn't buy a DPS Pagoda Tour 105, but if you've got the budget, then there's a reason that they're especially so good in this category. You know, I think like when we talk about firm snow and talk about all mountain performance, DPS can be pretty polarizing, whether it works for you or it doesn't. You know, I'd say often presented myself as somebody who it doesn't work super well for. But I think in a touring soft snow format, it's pretty hard to not like this.
Yeah. Yep. Made in the USA too.
It's kind of ideal. Yeah, you get a nice flag.
Yep.
And this like cool window.
Yeah, that's the flax in there.
I know. I like the window. You know what else I like? They won't see on camera, but how the carbon flax layers go all the way to the sidewall.
Yep.
And it almost looks like the ski is stitched together.
Yeah. No, I've always liked how they finish their skis.
Yeah, I mean,
you know, the quality of the construction stands out for sure.
$1,700. It better look good.
Yeah. I agree. This K2, Wayback 98.
We're both struggling with Wayback as a term. I said Backland. You said K-back?
And I think that one of the reasons this one is a little bit heavier is because it's a few centimeters longer than the 106. But still, if they were the same length,
it's still like
really close.
It's interesting.
So you would normally think that the wider ski.
I think it's core thickness.
It's very possible. So these do use a Polonia wood core, same construction, Titanal I-beam-ish underfoot here, and carbon stringers throughout. So you do get that light wood, the energy of the carbon, and then the sturdiness and stability of the metal. But real nice consistent flex pattern in this 98. 1,455 grams here on the scale. And kind of, this is typical of K2, where we just see a lot of tip rocker. And that's part and parcel of what they do and what they're looking for, and that's to incorporate fun and playfulness into the mix. While you were saying, Jeff, that having that camber underfoot balances that and gives it a more technical prowess as well. So you know, most of the time we're looking at a K2 that's meant to be used in softer snow and thinking it's very playful, very surfy, very smeary. And while those things are mainly true, you do get that nice edge grip and predictability of this ski underfoot.
Yeah, another trustworthy backcountry tool.
Yeah, and not a whole lot of splay in the tail. Pretty straight, pretty flat. Again, gives you better efficiency, better purchase, better kick going uphill. You just kind of see that more and more in the touring world than in Alpine freeride, and that's just how it goes. You know, it's just it's a performance benefit for climbing efficiency. So even if it takes a little bit off of the playful nature, I think that most people, you know, the idea is that you're getting to a point where no one else has skied, and at that point, how many complaints about playful performance can there possibly be?
Right.
You know, it's, if you have achieved what the ski is meant to do, you're going to be happy.
Yeah.
So I think that they're under less pressure to perform in a variety of conditions and terrain versus more of their Alpine counterparts. If you're thinking of like
Mindbender
96C,
yeah, that's a great point. Yeah.
That ski would certainly function as well as this in the same environment, but it would be harder to get there.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, that's really all the difference between kind of an Alpine counterpart and its touring partner, even though these are very different skis. $799.95. I want to look at that. So cheaper than the 106, which is, you know, that's standard stuff, I guess.
Yeah, it's standard stuff. It's
Yeah.
only, I think Kesley's the only company that's really, they're shaking things up with all the MX skis being
Yeah.
the same price. And
For different widths.
And even like last winter, talking to people that work for Kesley, they were like, well, we're going to tell you right now that adding 4 millimeters does not add $50. And we were like, oh, it's really nice to hear that.
Yes.
It never seemed like that would be the case.
No, that would seem like
you guys always keep making your wider
Yeah.
skis $50 more.
Yeah.
So, anyways.
But yeah, Wayback 98, really good option. You know, once we kind of see similar skis in different widths, we can move a little bit quicker. I will point out too, though, more of that trapezoidal influence here, just cutting a little bit out of the cap. And just another weight savings technique here from K2.
Yep. Thank you, Bob. Next ski is the Fischer Transalp 98 CTI. Second year for this ski?
Yeah,
if
this
I'm
carryover.
remembering right?
Yep.
Yeah. And, you know, I've always thought about this ski as like kind of a direct extension from the newest Ranger collection. And you see some similarities in their construction as well. So it's a Paulownia wood core. That is different than Rangers. But then we get a shaped TI laminate, which is basically almost exactly the same in its kind of shape as we get in Rangers. A little bit different. I imagine it's thinner, and it also comes in a little bit more. There's no like flex cut. It just comes like all the way in.
Yeah,
there's just like a big flex cut. And then there's carbon stringers in this ski. But, you know, if you take this ski and put it on a wall and put it right next to a Ranger 96, the similarities are like pretty visibly obvious to me. And I think a lot of the performance carries over as well. I think it's a highly versatile shape. I think it's something that could cross over between inbounds resort use, even riding lifts, and then you could take it into the backcountry as well. Where are we there on the 849.99, right almost at the halfway mark here, Bob. And just a lot of fun. It is pretty darn stiff. Ooh, nice, nice epoxy crack in there. Just over 1,400 grams, so we've been in the 1,400 range for, it feels like
number of skis
feels
now,
like an hour. And yeah, it's a fun ski. The kind of the big thing that differentiates it from a Ranger, and if you've been following along, this probably feels like a bit of a theme at this point. It is a 22-meter turn radius.
Yep.
So, you know, it's not designed for carving turns. It's designed for basically every other type of turn. And that's what really comes in handy in a backcountry touring format, or really in any touring format. You know, typically, like, you know, even those people that, like, every morning they're skinning up nosedive and coming back down, not many of them are, like, driving, carving turns on the way down because you're tired. You just did a 2,000 vertical foot ascent.
Yeah, I mean, most of that is an uphill-based activity.
Totally.
The downhill is just getting back to your car.
Yeah, but I basically mean I can't think of any scenario where people are touring with the goal of making carves.
Carve touring.
Carve touring.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a new thing.
Yeah, that's a new thing.
You're going to put a plate.
Yep.
So anyways, that's kind of the big difference to me. But aside from the longer turn radius, the rest is pretty similar. Good amount of tip rocker up here, nice amount of camber underfoot, and then really not like a substantial amount of tail rocker, but some, and then a nice like kind of middle ground for taper. So I just find it to be a very well-rounded ski. And you know, with that stiffer flex pattern, it's not going to feel maybe as playful or as supple as some, but I think it's very trustworthy and something that you could ski in a wide range of situations without having to worry about whether it'll live up to the use and abuse.
Yeah, these replaced
We got a wider one over there?
Yeah,
too?
we have
It's
a wider
hiding,
one right
it's
here.
hiding from me.
These replaced that Hannibal series.
Yeah, I think it's
a
much
couple
better,
years ago.
personally.
But like that Hannibal was also very reactive and
Yeah.
very quick and very precise, and people really liked that. And I think that those characteristics carry through to Transalp.
There's a lot of torsional stiffness.
Yeah.
Probably like some of the most torsional stiffness of what we've looked at so far, which I think is kind of what you're alluding to, Bob, is that it is very responsive.
Yeah.
It's a good ski. It's a very good ski. And Fischer has, they're a strong player in this category. And they kind of always have been, like, huge Nordic side of their business. So they're good at making skis that go uphill.
I mean, the Transalp, like multiple pages in their catalog. It's huge.
For Transalps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they go all the way through elite rondonnée racing. And,
Correct. Yeah, these are like, we have kind of the two heavier Transalps.
Yeah.
So, these, and I think I said it, but this is, to me, getting kind of near a hybrid ski. Like, now that we're in the middle of the wall, I don't feel this is hybrid-y. It's 109, it's huge for how light it is. But I don't really feel like the next two are either. But once we get to like your side of the wall, it's starting to feel more hybrid-y.
Yeah. I mean, I think this Backland is a good example of one that is resort powder oriented at a lighter weight. It just has...
Oh, you could put a shift on here and ski it as a resort powder ski and never tour on it and have a great season.
Yeah.
It's so fun in soft snow.
This Backland 109 is the same construction-wise as the 102, so light poplar wood core, that New Horizon tech, more of a beveled edge, and takes the carbon out as well. So that woodier, smoother feel. 1,479 grams on the scale and $799.95. So $800 for this thing. But like you said, Jeff, there is that component where you could use this as your resort powder ski. You could use this as your powder touring ski, because it is light enough and does have enough flotation and surfiness. I think that there is certainly a bigger application for this Backland 109. We mentioned it with that 102 as in terms of it being a very well-rounded ski for the weight, and I would say that carries through to this one as well.
It's hands down the best powder ski that we've talked about so far, and arguably the best powder ski on this whole wall. Locator 112 is right there. Draco Freebird to me is kind of right there, but it's really good. Yeah.
And now we see a little bit more of that Maverick and bent shovel shape put into this. So we had talked about the Maverick 115 CTI in the powder ski touring comparison, and if you put these kind of next to each other, similar to what you were talking about with the Ranger, it'll be hard to tell a difference, especially in the shovel, just looking at the way that it is built and shaped from profile and taper perspective. Certainly a lot of similarities. And then a good amount of camber underfoot. So these, we've always noted that the 107 and that 100 just felt very energetic. And that is, in those, the carbon had something to do with it, but they also had good camber to them. So, when you try to decompress it, there is a fair amount of feedback, and that just leads to more energy. And then nice surfy tail, nothing wrong with this. Really adept at making lots of different shaped and styled turns. This is a 19-meter turn radius, so a little bit turnier, and I feel like that with that camber profile makes this a very engaging ski. I don't know if you felt that when you were on it, but the weight allows it to be surfy, but then the profile and the overall flex make it poppy.
It's like the bounciest touring ski I've ever skied. And I mean that in the best way possible. Like it's like kind of porpoising in softer snow. It's so fun to ski. It feels like you're on like I don't know.
Clouds.
I was going to say like a bent 110, but it's actually
Yeah.
stiffer than that, kind of like through the tail, so it skis differently. But you could forget you're on a touring ski when you're in deep snow, for sure.
No, it's cool. And I think that they did a great job kind of adding to the smoothness while keeping that nice energy involved. I mean, it's got a good flex to it. And that nice beveled edge just adds to that quickness.
It's way more like supple than previous Backlands, which is just huge, and I think just a major improvement, you know, especially for soft snow.
I like that top sheet too.
Oh yeah, it's great. Did a great job with the like kind of subtle faux wood pattern.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. So now we've got the Pagoda Tour 100. We talked about the 105 a few skis ago. This one is 1,560 grams, so another interesting comparison in increasing weight but decreasing width.
I think this one's a little longer.
Yeah, it is. I don't know if that's going to contribute to the full difference, but anyways, it's very interesting. This ski, I would say, largely is similar to the 105, but is also quite different. Like I said, the construction is the same, the price is the same. It's that same $1,695 price, so quite expensive. This one has that 15-meter turn radius.
Which I enjoy.
Yes, 15-meter turn radius. Just wanted to make sure I was right. So they just ski very differently. They're much rounder. It's kind of something that's like, you know, what Bob was saying. It's something that I have often struggled with. Probably thinking back to like our first time testing like Whaler 100 or something a few years ago. And it just was a lot. There's a lot going on. It just wants to turn and turn and turn. For some skiers, that's going to really, really work to your advantage. You know, people like yourself.
Yeah.
I would say anybody in Vermont that's using this as a touring ski, you're skiing down through really tight trees. This gives you the tool to just like make clean, round, like speed control turns. I think that's a huge part of having a shorter turn radius like this. But then it's not going to be as like dynamic in different turn shapes, so it's going to be a little bit harder to release the tail edge because it wants to kind of stay in that rounder format. So certainly not like a straight sideways slashy ski. It's just kind of the opposite.
Yeah, and it's funny because on paper it doesn't seem to make sense, but I find that when you get on them, it's extremely engaging and rewarding. I really enjoy that.
For some skiers, you get on it and it's immediately intuitive.
Yeah.
It just matches exactly what you want to do. I just don't feel like I'm kind of that skier. Still pretty darn stiff. I would say, you know, talk about those powder carving skis, Bob. This is probably the best powder carving ski so far. So if you want to carve on it, I actually think this one could be like pretty darn good as a hybrid ski too.
Yep.
If you're somebody who skis at generally slower speeds when you're skiing inside the resort and you typically are always seeking out soft snow and technical lines, yeah, throw a hybrid binding on here, or even a pin binding that you really trust, like a Kingpin or an ATK or something like that, and I think you could rip this thing in the resort with no problems. I think it's just like understanding what that 15-meter turn radius is going to give you and whether that's going to work for you or not is pretty important. And we'll look at the shape real quick. Really, the difference in turn radius is the important part. Still that crazy DPS tip, a lot of tip rocker up there. It's really going to do the same thing that I was saying for the 105. It's going to keep you planing up off the snow. Maybe not quite as pointy in the tail. Kind of get like a block squared off finish, which is interesting, but still like a considerable amount of taper back there.
Yeah.
So although it's not going to be like drifty and slashy in soft snow, it's still going to be maneuverable and fun. It just does it in a much rounder format.
Yep. Yeah.
And it's very pretty.
I agree. And next up we got a Salomon, what do you say, MTN or Mountain?
I say MTN, but you can do whatever you want.
Okay. I don't know what I say. I guess I've never said it out loud before. Maybe last year on the touring comparison I said something about it, but MTN 96?
Carbon.
Carbon? Yeah.
That's its full name, I believe.
Thank you. This is more of a standalone ski. You know, this has a counterpart in the Whaler, the Carbon Whaler 100. Some other skis have similar Alpine counterparts, but this one certainly is more of a standalone ski in Salomon's touring category.
Certainly not a narrower QST Echo.
No, it is not a narrower QST Echo.
Very different.
Yeah, so very different and more singular-minded in its nature. We are built with a Caruba wood core and then carbon stringers throughout. Also get cork in the tips, so that's a similarity that we see brought through from some of Salomon's other skis, QST line most notably, and just keeping the vibrations down. I think anytime that you're relying on carbon for energy or structure, there is the potential for it to feel a little bit pingy, and so them putting their cork in there does make a lot of sense from a vibration damping perspective. They also use basalt fibers in here as well, and that, similar to flax, is more of a deadening agent to balance the stiffness of the carbon. 1,570 grams-ish on the scale, and a pretty soft shovel flex compared to a little bit stiffer of a tail. If you think about from a skinning perspective, if you're trying to like break through fresher snow, having a little bit of flex up here is a little bit more helpful. If it was stiffer and straighter, it might be going under and submarining a little bit. Yeah. So I think having just that suppleness here is more helpful for breaking trail or being in deeper snow. Did I say price? $799.95. You know, not bad for a more technical oriented ski, and that's really what this is. Not a whole lot of hybrid mentality going on here. Yeah. Very much.
It's really, to me, it's more in line with like the skis that we started with over here. Just being a little heavier, it's a little bit more robust.
Yeah, and Jeff, right on the money in terms of the skis over there, in terms of the shape and the profile as well. Yeah. You know, there's no other skis free ride influence in here. This is its own thing, and I think that that's reflected in the use case where this is more of like a solo mission ski, I would say. You know, some of these are more group skinning skis, and I just kind of feel like this one is more of a loner than some of the other skis out on the wall here, and that's fine. But yeah, not a whole lot, nothing really interesting going on in terms of the shape and the profile. It's pretty straightforward.
The visual of all the carbon stringers is sweet.
Yeah, there's a lot of them in there.
I know, like tons.
Yeah.
It looks like it's just one solid carbon strip.
I can't speak for certain if this is a recycled base, but it looks like a recycled base to me.
Educated guess is yes.
Yeah. But really, you know, an interesting ski here because it does stand apart and stand on its own. So I'm surprised that it ends up in the middle from a weight perspective.
Yeah, you'd think it would be over here, right? Yeah, me too. But I think that's like really interesting and kind of it's going to give you a little bit more stability, a little bit more power. So if you're, you know, I still think it's an extremely technical tool. But it's like going back to like conversations we were having back here about like no fall zones and stuff like that, like it's a great one. Yeah. If you really need something to trust.
I feel like this is a lot more Alp oriented and European touring oriented.
Yeah. I'll let you know in a month.
Okay.
Next ski is this this Fischer Transalp 105 CTI. We can go through this real quick because it's basically the exact same thing as the 98. 1,600 grams, so we're starting to creep up there. You know, 1,600 grams is a weight that like we see in Alpine ski comparisons. So from here on out, you know, I think if you are looking for hybrid skis, you're looking for something to use in and out of the resort, they're all perfectly well in play. You know, that MTN I think is like a little bit of an outlier because that doesn't feel like one to me, but the rest going forward I think is the same. So Polonia wood core, that same shaped TI laminate, same carbon application, Obviously, we're 105 underfoot now. This guy's still got a 22-meter turn radius. A little window there. I don't know if I've ever noticed. I like the little windows.
Yeah, those are your little carbon stringers in there.
I know, you can see the metal too.
Yep.
It's kind of cool how it like overlaps the metal there.
Well, I thought it was an American flag, similar to the DPS.
It looks like an American flag, but that would be wrong.
Yeah.
There's really nothing American about these skis. Probably actually more popular in America. More European touring is on narrower skis generally. Anyways, the recipe's the same, 1,600 grams, still pretty stiff. And, you know, we're 105 underfoot. We're not too far off from Backland 109 there. And I would say where this ski really excels in soft snow and just like putting a smile on your face from the enjoyment of skiing powder, this one's a bit more chargy.
Yeah.
You know, I think this is for a backcountry touring enthusiast who isn't necessarily seeking out like the deepest, freshest snow. I think a lot of people, you know, like when we go out and ski in Little Cottonwood Canyon, you look across the road and you see everyone skinning up. Those people are looking for soft snow.
Yeah.
But, you know, if you're kind of like going touring and you're not too concerned about what the snow conditions are going to be, you're more like exploring zones and you like skiing fast. Maybe you're skiing some like wide open wind buff terrain in Colorado and you want to just let it run. I think these are fantastic. And you know, you do see kind of the opposite on the playful side. These aren't going to feel particularly playful with a pretty stiff flex and a 22-meter turn radius. They're going to go a little bit more. You know, we've been talking about turn radii, and yes, you can release the tail edge, but I think when you get up to this width and just everything going on here, the width and the weight and the stiffness, is releasing the tail edge is kind of, it's nice having that ability. It's not contributing to the overall characteristic of the ski, in my opinion. Good amount of tip rocker up here, less than we've seen in like DPS and stuff like that. So again, kind of like a nod to the stability and power that this thing has. And then same is true in the tail. There's tail rocker back here, but not much splay and not much taper. You know, it's again kind of like just Ranger shaped.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. It's like a long, straight cut Ranger that's a little bit lighter. So these have already earned themselves a strong following, and they haven't been on the market for very long, which is, you know, I think a good example that they're really good skis.
You pay for it a little bit, little uptick.
Yeah, thank you for the reminder. $899.99, but you could get two of them and only spend $100 more than either DPS.
Yeah.
So depends how, you know, it's like it's perception, Bob.
It's all relative. I get it.
They're cheap.
Yeah. What a deal.
Compared to a Pagoda Tour. So yeah, very similar to the 98. Just like, I think when you're bumping up in that width, it just like changes. These feel more versatile. The 98, where the 105 feels kind of big mountain touring chargy ski.
Yeah, and that's kind of the pedigree of this thing here too, this Dynastar M-Tour 108.
I think they're very similar.
Yeah, this one is based, so the 100 is based off of the M-Pro 100 Ti, and then this one is based off of the M-Pro 108 Ti, which is like their big mountain chargy ski. And that thing's pretty burly. We had that in our mid 100s or maybe 110 free ride comparison, and it's always amazing feeling that ski and just like how dense and sturdy and stable it is. So this shares the same footprint, same mold with a lighter build. So the other one does use a denser beech wood core. This one uses the lightweight poplar. So we still get that hybrid core 2.0 here with those 3 layers of wood and the milled and joined technique, just no metal. So a little bit lighter here, 1,551 grams, but same kind of big mountain footprint. I like to think of that M-Pro as the Dynastar engineers in Chamonix looking up the mountain and saying, we want to ski for that big mountain right there.
Yep.
And really all this one does is allows them to say, we want this ski to go from here to there and back to here. So they're adding that uphill component to it, whereas with the normal M Pro, you're going to take 4 trims and 2 funiculars to get up there.
Yeah, I don't know. That sounds accurate to me.
Okay. This one is the human-powered version of the M Pro 108. So pretty cool stuff. We do get a slightly longer turn radius. This is a shorter length, 179, so 20 meters in the turn radius, and very similar to what we see in that big mountain ski. Nice long progressive rocker shape here, really confidence inspiring in deep snow and more technical zones, and then a little bit rounder of a taper shape here as well. So really floaty up front in the tip, nice camber underfoot, and then pretty flat directional tail. And this just gives you more confidence in a straighter line. You know, finishing a turn in choppy or broken snow, I think we're just seeing a little bit more of that directional mentality filtering into this 108 versus slightly more round and more playful 100 there. But yeah,
I agree.
I just think that this, I just always like to think of the Chamonix ski designers wondering how to get from here to there and back again. But really fun.
It's a nice place to live if you're designing skis.
Yeah. But again, a little bit more flex in the shovel and then stiffer underfoot. But yeah, full sidewall. You know, this is, I mean, real deal ski construction here. Pretty awesome.
I really like the base.
Yeah, they do. I mean, they do a fantastic job.
Kind of a superficial comment, but
I'm not going to knock you for it.
it's kind of cool.
They say price $799.95, so I feel like we're seeing some good consistent prices other than...
I know, when I wrote down all those prices, the exact same feedback I had, I was like, oh, they're like all $800.
Yeah.
This one's $850. Yeah, this one's $849.95, so right around that $800 mark. This is the Black Crow's Camox Freebird. Been around for a while now. It's a pretty simple build and overall pretty straightforward ski, and I think that's a reason why like people like it so much.
Yeah.
We've sold a lot of them over the years, and it just like does everything really well. Could be a hybrid ski. I think like the next Black Crows are better hybrid skis, like the Navis. I think Corvus we've talked about at length about being a hybrid ski. Draco Freebird is like kind of unique. Doesn't really fall into that as much as the other two for me. This one I think is kind of better if you're putting a true tech binding, a pin binding on it, but I don't want to tell somebody not to put a hybrid binding on here. It doesn't quite feel as much as the Navis, but anyways, I'm wasting time really. Paulownia wood core, and then there's kind of carbon worked into the fiberglass layers of this ski. They call it carbon and glass, but it's really just kind of the two things woven together. 1,670 grams, so you know, again, we're like ticking up in weight, and you might be kind of thinking like, well, why wouldn't it be a good hybrid ski? There's no real reason it can't be. It's more just kind of me and how I think about it in regards to other Black Crow's skis. And I certainly see more of these out in the world with tech bindings on them. And then if you're thinking about it kind of through that lens, it's just going to be a more stable ski, a more stable platform. It's not quite as soft snow oriented as like a lot of the skis that we've been talking about recently. You know, as we've been moving up in weight, we've been seeing wider and wider skis. These are back to just 96 underfoot. So more of a versatile ski for different snow conditions. See a lot of them here in Stowe. Works really well for the kind of mix of snow and conditions that we have in Vermont. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. It is pretty stiff. Like, I think they're all pretty stiff, all the Black Crows. It's not like jarringly stiff, and I will say that there's a nice amount of vibration damping in these skis. So it's not quite like the stiff, you know, the LT80 where it's just going to be super pingy and deflect off everything. These stay pretty darn composed and track really well. I think I said the weight, 1,670 grams there. And then, like I was saying, like the shape is just like pretty darn straightforward. Like very kind of normal amount of tip rocker up here for a 9,600 foot ski that's intended to be versatile. Quite a lot of camber and good camber height as well. And then like kind of a normal amount of tail rocker. There's not much splay back there. There's not like a ton of length. There's nothing really profound to say about its shape, including the fact that it's a 17-meter turn radius. But when you have a ski that's like just right down the middle on everything, that's going to be a really good ski.
Yeah.
So Camox Freebird can do a ton of different things, and even if you have a tech binding on it, there's no reason why you couldn't go spin some resort laps as well. Definitely not going to be like the driftiest and the most playful in soft snow, but it can handle soft snow, and then it's going to handle firmer snow better than, I mean, really just about anything that we've looked at so far.
Yeah, I'd say, you know, your Transalp.
Transalp is kind of my hesitation.
Or your Pagoda here might be on track with that. Yeah,
but pretty straightforward. No frills, no surprises here. You're going to get on it, and it's going to feel intuitive and predictable, and you're going to be able to do a lot of things on it. And I think there's a reason why like they just keep making it. It hasn't like changed in, I can't remember how long.
A couple years. It's been 4 years maybe.
Yeah, but yeah, they keep making it. People keep buying it, and people. I've never heard anybody complain about their Camox Freebird.
I'll only complain about the name because it really doesn't share anything with the Camox.
Yeah, I've always thought that was weird.
They're just they're very different, and like.
Well, the Corvus didn't share anything with the previous Corvus, but it actually does now.
Well,
with
more
the new Corvus.
This is actually more like the new Corvus.
Yeah, it's closer.
Well, we can talk about that later, but you know, the old Navis before the Freebird was very similar to this.
Correct.
And then I just feel like Camox.
It's not Alpine, a twin tip.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just it's weird. I almost
like the only similarity is that it's red.
The red. Yeah. Oh well. Shorter turn radius. Like the Camox has like a longer turn radius.
I know. It's weird.
It's strange.
Yeah.
Either how, we'll move on to a Stockli Edge FT. This is a carryover model from last year, I think. It's got the speed holes in the tip, which I think is pretty cool, and is really, I think, the only ski here that has a full metal laminate to it. So we are built with a lightweight wood core, and then this top sheet is metal. So they did paint it though, so it does take kind of the sheen away from it. They put their protective coating on it so
you don't blind yourself when you're touring.
Right, or it doesn't stick to, the snow doesn't stick to it as much.
Yeah.
But really high-end Stockli engineering and quality go into this ski. Like everything, it gets the rubber dust involved in the adhesive laminates, so certainly feels like a more substantial, smooth, and stable product. That's reflected in the price. You know, you don't normally see Stocklis for under $1,000. This is no exception at $1,299. But you're getting a pretty light ski, 1,668 grams there. And I think it would be a little bit simplistic to say this is the touring version of the Stormrider 95, but it's also pretty close. It also kind of is. Yeah. You know, it's an old Stormrider 95 with one less sheet of metal.
Yeah.
That's kind of the...
And it's not like drastically different than the new Stormrider 95.
Right. Yeah, it's really this chunky metal tail, and this is the old Stormrider tail shape here.
Yeah.
So a little bit closer, but a lot of metal for a touring ski. Amazing that they keep it under 1,700 grams. I mean, we note that about the Stormriders in general, that they're pretty light. I mean, this is really just
the metal top sheet is such a huge part of that.
I mean, it's really just a 200 gram savings over a Stormrider. A little bit more flexible, you know, and we noted in Stormrider as well, slightly more flex in the shovel than the tail, but very much a directional ski here. Probably one of the better carvers, I'd say. Certainly hands down. One of the most damp and most stable. And I just love that this is Stockli's version of free ride rocker.
Especially in the tail.
In their tail, yeah. This is a Stockli twin tip, basically. You know, it's funny
The Rotor 84 is rolling in its grave listening to you say that.
Well, I wish I still made it.
I got one in my basement. You want me to bring it in?
Yeah. But no, it's just it points to Stockli's commitment as a precision-oriented brand, that they make strong skis that work well and do not flinch. And this Edge FT is certainly an example of that. 21-meter turn radius, so nice middle of the road turn shape and style for a pretty light and capable ski. Yeah, nothing wrong with this thing. I think this is awesome. I
like the flex pattern a lot, that it's a little softer.
Yeah.
Because the rest of it is so squared, you know, like flat and squared off, that if it was stiffer, it would just be like, it wouldn't be fun to ski at all.
No, and that's pretty much why they changed that Storm Rider 95 tail to be a little bit more,
a little supple,
a little more taper, less metal. Is that this is not a drifty shape and style of ski.
Yeah.
So if you're expecting to throw it sideways and get Backland 109 style of smearing, then you're going to be mistaken and a little sad probably.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's great, and I also really enjoy it when these premium ski models, this DPS, they put their engineering and their sophistication behind a touring product.
Yeah, and we'll see it kind of towards the end of the wall there in the V.Werks.
Yep.
And then this next ski, we'll get through it pretty quickly. This is another, we've got two of them up here, so we've already kind of talked about the construction. This is the Locator 112, so as a refresher, it's that Caruba and carbon-based build with that kind of metal underfoot. They're not cheap, so this is another one. We talked about it back on Locator 104, just like kind of the initial shock of the price. It's $950, which is like, is that the most expensive Armada?
I think like a Declivity X108 is over $1,000, but I could be wrong. They've got a bunch hovering around $1,000.
All right, well, it's got to be up there.
Yeah.
It's got to be up there near the most expensive Armada. And it's really fun. I think it's just, it can be hard for people to land on it, given the price, and then given like how many other players there are in this category. Like, you know, Atomic Backland 109 versus Locator 112. It's like,
yeah,
how much is Backland 109?
It's 150 difference.
Less?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like that can be can require some mental gymnastics.
Yeah.
But that is certainly not to take anything away from the ski. The ski itself is very good. 1,760 grams on our scale. Kind of like not stiff, not soft. A Goldilocks flex pattern, Bob. Just right. And then I want to look at the shape, because that's like, to me, by far the most important thing about these skis. Good amount of tip rocker up here. Not like much camber height. 112 underfoot. You don't need much camber. And then a decent amount of tail rocker. Not maybe as much as one would expect in a ski this wide, but that same like, every time I look at them, I see a surfboard. And like it just contributes to how they ski as well. It's a 24-meter turn radius, Bob, with this kind of like tapered shape in the shovel, and then like a ton of surface area in the tail. So you're staying on top of the snow probably more than anything else on this whole wall.
Yeah, I'd agree.
So if you want your powder touring experience to truly feel surfy, like not feel the bottom of the snow or the whatever's firm underneath there somewhere. People in Utah are rolling their eyes at me because they're like, there's nothing under there. But if you want to stay planing on top of the snow and just kind of surf and smear around, this one's really, really good. And there's not too much that can compare to it. You know, if you're looking to justify the price, it's hard for me to think of another ski that would do the same thing at the same weight.
I'd say like this Draco it's got something there
similar,
for sure.
But it's not as drifty.
Yeah.
It's not as surfboardy to me. And like this ski feels more bouncy and like is more inclined to porpoise.
Yeah. And
this ski just wants to stay right on top. And yeah, I think like it's been hard for me to fully get behind the price. But that is certainly not to take anything away from the ski.
Right.
It's just sometimes, even for us that work in the industry, sometimes you look at a price and you get kind of sticker shock.
Right.
And yeah, it's like, admittedly, that has been the case for me. But they're a ton of fun to ski.
You know, we could have also included 2 other locators.
Yeah, what, 96?
And an 88.
Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yep.
There's a Black Crow's Navis Freebird.
Yeah, I'm supposed to do something.
You can do the scale if you want. It's a very green ski. This Freebird overtook the Alpine version of the
that's
Navis.
What you started with. It's very green.
It's very green. There's, other than the text, there's nothing
edges
about it.
Edges are
silver.
Yeah.
But yeah, this took over the Alpine version and really just kind of ran with it. We you know, one of the first times we skied Black Crows together, I was on a Camox, you were on a Navis, and I hooked into the Camox really easily, but you really like this shape.
I did really like the Navis.
Yeah.
Which is the opposite of what we're supposed to like.
Right.
I'm supposed to like the Camox, and you're supposed to like the Navis.
Yeah.
Is it Navis?
I don't know. I watched Julian's video on the Draco earlier.
Did he say Draco?
I don't know.
Oh,
Draco.
Boy. Draco?
I think. I'm not sure.
Double Rocker?
Yeah. Either way, Navis still follows that same shape. So really fun, really engaging and versatile shape. It's 102 millimeters underfoot, 1,770 grams, and really well-rounded ski. It does follow what Camox Freebird has with more of a bulbous tip shape, so for better flotation, and then a little bit flatter and more directional throughout. So we always kind of figured that this was a nice mix style of ski with a very floaty tip and then a more business-like underfoot zone and a very reactive tail. So finished a turn really well, I remember, and was also easy to get sideways, which I thought was a huge component of this ski. We are pricey, similar to Locator, $949.95. So, you know, you're going to pay for the engineering and the design of the shape here, which I think is really interesting. It is a blend of poplar and paulownia in the wood core, so just a little bit more kind of density and confidence in the poplar stringers, but nice positive camber underfoot. And, you know, when it's decambered, certainly a longer rocker profile. So there is, and this is what Black Crows does really well, is they make a ski that is able to feel different ways depending on how hard you're skiing it or where you're putting your pressure. And they just do a really nice job of shaping their products. Because it is a long camber profile here when it's decambered. So you do get that long effective edge and a smooth behavior. Not a ton of tail rocker and some nice splay. This is, I would say, similar to the discussion we had with your DPS 105 there, where it's a little bit more of that tail surfiness where you can get a lot of your turning out of there. But yeah, 19-meter turn radius in this one. And I think that the long camber profile is the big story here.
Yeah.
And the green color.
I'm sure you said it, but are you paulownia or are you poplar and paulownia?
I'm both.
Thank you for the refresher.
Yeah.
I was listening to April through the wall.
Oh. But nice really. Even flex throughout, full sidewall. I think that's kind of a nice move once we get into this side of the wall here, is that we're really looking at a more complete construction of a ski. Yeah. So, good stuff.
I'm excited that I get to talk about Draco Freebird. I've been pretty excited about this ski ever since it came out. This one, the reason I asked is this is also a blend of poplar and paulownia, and then you get that same kind of carbon and fiberglass combination. We're getting pretty heavy now. So over 1,900 grams. This ski is pretty big. It's 110 underfoot. And, you know, we haven't really talked too much about twin tips so far, and that's because they don't work great as touring skis. You know, you were talking about how like if your skin is just not on the snow, it's not doing anything. So there's a reason why most things in the touring category don't have much like just like twin tip splay. This is one of the rare options that does. I think like the Enforcer 104 Unlimited kind of filled a similar role for a while. And quick note, like we still have some, I think. Doesn't really seem like Nordica's gonna make more because it's not on their website anymore. Rest in peace, I don't know.
I still got my pair, I love them.
Yeah, I know. And like that 104 is still awesome, which is another, if you're kind of looking for more of a twin tip shape. Anyways, so Draco Freebird is really intended to fill the role as a free ride, soft snow touring ski for somebody with more of a freestyle mindset. So maybe you're hitting a backcountry jump, you know, maybe you've got a hybrid binding on here that's strong enough to land big jumps, land big cliffs. Maybe you're putting like a cast system on here. You know, I think that's like a really good application and like a really good kind of way to think about this ski. You know, you skin up with your tech binding, take it off, and then you've got a pivot on there and you just go session your backcountry jump. So I love that this ski exists, and I think it's cool, and I'm sure I'm not the only skier that loves that it exists, because there's more and more of me out there, kind of as park skiers age into their middle-aged.
Their twilight.
Yeah, where we can afford a $1,149 Draco Freebird. It's not cheap.
Yeah.
It's not like a $200 park twin tip, like a K2 Sight.
Right.
Which doesn't exist anymore. Like a K2 Omen, whatever. Those aren't $300.
Volkl Revolt 81.
You know what I mean? Like this is a real ski, but there's more people that want twin tips with a budget for a ski like this. You probably saw me flexing it. It's not like crazy stiff, but it's stiff. It's certainly stiff enough to be supportive for big landings, and I think that's kind of the idea here. And then, yeah, like I was saying, the shape is pretty darn unique in the touring category. Good amount of tip rocker up here. That's not particularly unique. Not much taper, so a good amount of surface area up here, which I think a lot of like freestyle-minded skiers want in powder skis. I typically want to have a good amount of surface area in my tips and tails. And then this is where things start to get just wild. You know, that's some of the most tail rocker we've seen, and definitely the most splay.
Yeah.
You know, like there are skis up here that have the same or similar length for tail rocker, but not that splay. So, you know, that'll truly go switch in powder. And I can't point to another ski on this wall that I would feel comfortable. Yeah, I don't feel very comfortable landing switch in powder, period. But if I had to pick a ski to do it on this wall, it would 100% be this one. And yeah, there aren't too many skis out there that kind of have that capability. 21 meter turn radius in this thing, so it's not like super long. And I think like when you have this shape, this much rocker, you can rein the radius in a little bit, give it a little bit more responsiveness, a little bit more like kind of feedback in turning formats, and then still be as drifty as you could really ever want. Yeah. Because you're releasing the edge from the rocker rather from the straight cut of the side cut. So I think it's sweet. I would love to own a pair. It would just be one of those things that like I don't use.
You don't live in the Alps.
Yeah, or like I don't live in Utah.
Yeah.
And like if I'm building a backcountry jump, I can walk to it.
Right. Because
it's like right over there. You know, there's only a handful of spots around Stowe that you can really build a big quote unquote backcountry jump, and I only say that because it's not in the confines of the resort. And then I use like approach skis. You know, I put skis on my back and go in with cross country skis like a Rossignol BC80.
Yeah.
So, anyways, if I did live out west, I'd love to own a Draco Freebird.
continuing with our Black Crowes onslaught here, this is the Corvus Freebird. The ski is unchanged from years past.
Yeah, we probably talked about this for like 45 minutes over the last 4 years.
Yeah, and it's, you know, this is the Black Crowes version of the M-Tour 108, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Where you are at the base of Chamonix and you're looking at the top of the mountain and you say, how do I get from there to here and have the most fun and be at least somewhat efficient? And we've also kind of talked about this ski and where it fits into a touring category because it is 1,900 grams and there are lighter 107 millimeter skis out there in the world that are not on this wall that we've talked about excessively.
Yep.
So, you know, within Black Crowes line, it's interesting how they're viewing this as that free touring ski, as this big mountain approach and attack weapon, that you do need more power underfoot than a lighter ski. I'll just bring up Elan Ripstick 108, for example.
Sure.
Lighter than this ski.
Yep.
And, but it is not as stable or powerful from a downhill perspective. So really they're making a ski as dense and stable as possible without putting multiple sheets of metal and making it just overly cumbersome. So I think that's the mentality. You know, I feel like it's more of a European touring mentality or a bigger mountain touring mentality than...
I see more of them inbounds. Like I see a lot with Alpine bindings on them.
Yeah. In
North America.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting how philosophies change across an ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one is poplar wood core. And we do get that metal underfoot for a mounting plate. But overall, pretty straight ski. This is very reminiscent of the old Alpine Corvus, the new Corvus, more shaped like the Draco here in terms of its twin tip and overall camber profile, a little bit flatter, whereas this one has quite a bit of camber underfoot, very long like the Navis. It really doesn't end until the very end of the tail. I mean, this is a full cambered ski.
Yeah.
You know, there is tip rocker, but from there to the very tail, this is pretty much 100% cambered.
Stark contrast from Draco.
Yeah, very much so. They still have more of that tapered shape in the shovel here, just to give it that flotation and allow it to plane up and over fresh, broken snow. I feel like, you know, days old snow after the storms, that's where this ski really excels because it's not going to get deflected, it's not going to get thrown, yet you still have that adventurous mindset. And I think that's where, I think the philosophy of where the ski is used is the bigger story.
Yeah.
But yeah, pretty stiff flex overall, you know, nice and consistent though. I mean, very, very smooth.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's really cool. Just more of that traditional and directional shape. You really need to be pretty aggressive to max out the performance here.
Yep.
So the fact that they're able to get this level of performance in a under 2,000 gram ski at 107 millimeters underfoot is pretty impressive.
Yeah, totally.
$1,049.95. So you're paying for that type of performance, but again, there's not much out there that really can do what this ski does at this weight.
Yeah, I agree.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty darn chargy. Katana V.Werks is an interesting one. The most Volkl freeride ski you can possibly imagine. And I say that as a complimentary way, or I mean it in a complimentary way, because Volkl, their engineering department is one of the best. You know, the amount of technology and intention that goes into their designs is impressive, and I think sets them apart from a lot of manufacturers. Multi-layer wood core in this ski, it's like interesting to say that because
like there's much of it.
Portions of the ski that don't have any wood core, but it is poplar and beech. So that's kind of interesting because we haven't talked about beech today at all. Beech is a more dense material, so they're putting dense wood in here, just not a lot of it. this is the thinnest ski that you will ever see, in portions at least. So it's basically pure raw carbon with a little bit of wood to mount your binding, and then and then kind of a wood spine. And it's quite expensive. It's $1,349.99, and a very interesting ski. 112 underfoot, 23.5 meter turn radius, 1,900 grams, so it's pretty darn light, all things considered. And then, like, the shape just is, like, the most Volkl thing ever. It's pure reverse camber.
Yeah, and those are few and far between these days. There's just not, especially from major brands.
Totally.
You know, there's some indies that are making full rocker skis, but really nothing from major brands that look like that.
So it's long turn radius, all rocker, but then, like, pretty impressively stiff.
Yeah.
So it's like the most technical, most responsive, drifty ski that you'll ever ski. Like, if you want, like, slashy, drifty performance, but you want it to be, like, top-notch responsiveness and energy and performance, like, there's nothing else out there like this thing.
Like, how does something this sharp be so surfy?
Yeah,
like,
I don't know.
It totally...
It's completely counterintuitive. Also, how does it not break?
I don't know.
I don't think I've ever seen a Katana V.Werks break. But, like, yeah, you hold it in your hand, it feels like cracker thin. Yeah. Like, it literally feels like I could take a bite out of the Katana V.Werks, and I'm sure my teeth would break before the ski. So we're not going to try and do that. But it is very interesting. You know, I think, like, it's perfectly acceptable as a touring ski. I would say it's equally as acceptable as somebody who wants an inbounds resort ski, and you're just going to put an Alpine binding on it. You know, you've got, like, a budget to buy a ski like this and just have a lot of fun kind of surfing and smearing around on it.
Yeah. They took out the hole for this year.
I know. What's up with that?
I think that their
skin attachment is more of, like, a hook.
Yeah, but I think that they're leaning towards what you were just talking about, where
bringing that into the fold,
bringing Alpine use more into the a little bit more emphasis on.
That's how I would want to see it. I mean, I say that as the owner of a QST X, which is a touring ski that's not up here because we had it in our powder ski comparison. You know, that's an ultra wide touring ski. Yep. And, like, I have a touring binding on it, but for whatever reason, when I look at this, my instincts would be like, put that Marker's not going to like this, but put that pink attack that's supposed to go with the Playmaker on it. It would look sweet. Yeah. So I don't know. It's a very unique ski, and it has a very unique, like, on snow feel. And I think most people would like it, but I'd say if you're, like, even considering it at all, you're probably gonna like it. And the people that wouldn't like it, it's so wild and so out there that you're not even thinking about it to begin with. Yeah,
anything V.Werks is kind of like that, where it's
you're gonna like it.
But it's like their development.
Yeah,
this is what these are future skis. This is what we're putting all of our technological sophistication into a V.Werks. You know, kind of, I don't know. I think of it like AMG. Engineering.
Sure. Yeah, it's a good way to think about it. This is a Volkl AMG 112.
Yeah. We'll finish up with a QST Echo, which is pretty fun. This is a carryover ski for this year as well. And we didn't mention Nikolai Schermer with the Draco Freebird, but also we'll try to mention Cody Townsend with this Echo. If these pro skiers are doing what they're doing in terms of adventure and big mountain touring, like, chances are you could too. You know, there's a very high level of performance that go along with these, and I think that it's always interesting to see how the pro skiers handle these lighter weight options, which I find to be really impressive. So this Echo 106, 1,950 grams. This is the big one. This is the 189. So I'd imagine the 181 might be a little bit lighter. But this is a similar construction to your QST X you were talking about, where it's a blend of poplar and caruba in the wood core, and then we get basalt fibers through here, and that really takes the sting off of the lighter weight of the wood. We also get the recycled sidewalls, this double sidewall here, which is pretty fun. And then we also get cork in the tips and in the tails. So nice even flex. I mean, this is the same mold as a QST 106, just a lighter weight construction. Probably a 200 gram difference at this weight. I would
think that's about right. Yeah.
Guess that QST 106 in this length would be about 2100.
It might even hit 22.
Yeah. And that's just mainly a factor of blending caruba into the wood core, and then using more CFX material in the QST 106.
Yeah, does that one have cork?
This one has cork, yep. But yeah, really awesome ski. We've loved that QST 106 in terms of how well it turns and how smooth it is. And this just ticks up the agility and the uphill efficiency. So if you're looking for mixing those attributes, this Echo's a great place to be. 20 meter turn radius here in the 189. I think when you pair it with this flex, you can really access a bunch of different turn shapes and styles.
Just like the normal one.
Just like the normal one. I mean, you can really make that ski make a variety of turn shapes and styles that you would not expect out of a heavy 106 with no metal. Yeah. It's really, really interesting. Yeah, nice long rocker, very progressive. You know, this is more based off of a contemporary free ride shape than a lot of other skis we see here. Nice long camber, and then really long tail rocker. I would say that's probably the longest tail rocker.
It's similar to Draco, here. I think.
Yeah, just
but I think a little longer and less splay. Yeah.
So a little bit rounder here in the tail. Nice taper for good steering purposes. But yeah, I would call this a really great hybrid option for skiers. But then also there's Cody Townsend, who puts a full-on Pintec binding and goes and gets some of the craziest mountains that you'll see on the planet.
Right. So, and there's tons of customization in the touring world. Yeah. Like we've talked about that before. Like I am drawn more to putting a heavier binding on a light ski, where some skiers are, like you were just saying, taking a heavier ski and putting a really light binding on it. Yeah. And it basically just boils down to personal preference.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no right or wrong answer there.
And there's just so much ski content out there now that shows people on this with a pin binding doing crazy things. Yeah. And if that doesn't give you confidence to put a lightweight binding on any of these skis, I don't know what will. Right. You just you have to get over it. Yeah. Yeah. But totally. Who knows what that'll take. $799.95.
Fantastic value.
I think that's a great deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Yep.
We really went on a journey from 0G LT80 to QST Echo over there. And
I mean, really, the tables started turning like here.
Yeah,
this
I agree.
Last 7 skis or so is...
Yeah, and like, alternatively, this kind of felt like just an Echo.
Right.
Like, there's obviously differences between these skis, but there's so many similarities in kind of this range. Well, like how many skis were like 1,400 grams?
Yeah, I think it just goes to show that the touring market, that these manufacturers are eyeing that number.
Yeah, right.
We're sub 1,500 grams. Yep. We've got some Alpine influence. Yeah. And have at it.
Yeah. And then here's the unique thing that we can provide as a manufacturer that separates us. Yeah. So that was it. Hopefully that was fun for everybody that watched. Hopefully it was informative as well. I suppose that's probably more important, that it was informative.
No, fun first.
Fun first, okay. Hopefully it was fun and also informative. And yeah, let us know if you have any questions. Obviously there are skis that weren't up here. You know, you could go lighter. I don't really think it's ever worth going heavier, but...
Yeah, I mean, 2,000 is...
It's starting to,
It's pushing it.
Yeah. But yeah, if there's anything up here that you're wondering about, or if you have like binding compatibility questions, or you've got this idea in your head that you think is crazy and you want to know what we think of it, let us know.
Those are my favorites.
Yeah, me too. And chances are I'm going to say go for it, because I like when people like think outside the box and just kind of like do their own thing. So yeah, that's it. Let us know if you have any questions, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.